Hello everybody, welcome to another video. Recently a new preset has dropped, and for the last couple of days I have been playing around with it and coming up with setups and doing strategies and stuff, and now I think I'm ready to make a video about it so that you too can learn about this thing that just dropped. It is a great preset and I highly recommend you give it a try. We're gonna, at the time of creation of this video, we're gonna try to schedule a community race so that you guys can see it in action. But for now, I present to you, without further ado, the video about the Lycanthrope preset, also known as Dogo preset in homage to the hit song I Like Hotodogo, or as I like to call it, Woofy percent, because you go woof. So, let's get into it. Summary of this video. I'm going to talk about the mechanical characteristics of this preset and all that it does. I'm going to talk about some very important setups that you probably should learn and practice before you attempt to do this. And I'm also going to talk about some less important setups that, while good to know because they can kind of help you go fast, you definitely don't need to learn them. So feel free to skip that if you just want to jump as fast as possible. In addition, I am going to leave a link in the description so that with a folder that contains all of a bunch of save states. I think it's like 20 of them, so that you can quickly practice any section you want, at least in the early parts of the game, as well as the PPF for the seed that I used to create those save states, so that you can too give it a try. So about the preset, you start with the 3 Wolf relics, so that's Wolf, Power of Wolf, and Skill of Wolf, which means that from the get-go you have access to a great form of movement, at least in terms of flat surfaces, and one that allows you to break logic in a couple of different ways. In addition, the consumption of MP for those Wolf relics has been greatly reduced. Specifically, just being in Wolf form without any type of movement normally costs mana over a second in the vanilla game. In this preset, it is reduced to 0. You don't recover any MP, but you at least don't lose it either, so that's pretty good. In addition, normally hitting enemies when you're at high speed with the Power of Wolf takes a ton of MP away from you, and in this preset, it has been lowered to specifically only cost 1 MP per hit. So those two make it a lot more accessible to spam the Wolf, at least in the early parts of the game where you don't have much mana. However, because Skill of Wolf, the charge, does not have any changes, you can't simply use that left and right, otherwise you are going to run out of MP in those early sections. So there is a little bit of an aspect of mana management, and then by the time you have a lot of levels and a ton of MP, you probably already have bad and better forms of mobility anyway, so you're like Wolf falls off. But still, it's a great it's great mobility at the beginning. So there is no item stat randomization, so whatever you see is whatever you get, and that's great. The initial equipment is always fixed. You always get Shield Rod, Shaman Shield, Silver Crown, Brilliant Mail, Blood Cloak, and Mystic Pendant. If you're wondering what the hell are those middle items, those are just items that increase intelligence, and increasing intelligence increases the damage that you do with your bark, hence why those items are chosen. If you're wondering, wait, why specifically Shaman Shield and Shield Rod? That's so that you can use the Shaman Shield spell, which increases intelligence. That's just why. And obviously Mystic Pendant recovers MP, so you know, it's pretty good. Outside of that, the preset uses safe logic and makes use of complexity for the most part. The only difference between safe complexity and Lycanthrope complexity is that because you have the relics Wolf, you don't like Aurochs and Akmodon. They are always guaranteed. You only need flight to get to those because you have a transformation, and so those gates are removed. In addition, Wolf and Power of Wolf together, because you have them, allows you to do Waterfall jump without having flight or leap stone. And so because of those gates being removed, the maximum complexity is down 1. In safe, the theoretical maximum is 11. In Lycanthrope, the theoretical maximum is 10. In safe, the minimum complexity is 9. In Lycanthrope, the minimum complexity is 8. But otherwise, logic is unaffected. So anything that you could or couldn't do in safe, the logic assumes the same for Lycanthrope. Even though those relics allow you to break a lot more stuff, and we're going to touch upon that, the logic is the same. And so, let's go on to setups that you must learn. First up, before any relic checks, you can do death skip. Now, a huge asterisk here, at the time of release of this video, you know, the preset just launched, so people hadn't have much time to experiment with it. But skipping death, although possible, is extremely inconsistent to the point of pretty much being random. And so I have a suspicion that much like we ban the regular speedrun death skip with shift lines, I have a suspicion that for the sake of being fair in a race, death skip's gonna be banned because it is just such a massive advantage, and it's like it's probably not even fair. But for now, it is allowed, so I'm gonna teach you how to do that and why it's so good. All right. So with that out of the way, it's possible to skip death with well-timed jumps. The massive advantage comes from, one, you just keep moving through the room. You don't stop to watch the cutscene. And even if you perform the setup right, it means that you were moving pretty fast on the previous room and you don't stop to bonk on anything and you just keep zooming. So that's pretty fast on its own. But because you're able to keep your gear, you have a shield, so you can do shield dashing, which is fast. You have Mystic Pendant, which recovers MP, which is absolutely great for just using Wolf, and even just straight up using spells to kill bosses and stuff, so that's amazing. And of course, you have a shield rod, so if you find a good shield, you win the game, period. And even if you don't find shield, it's still a good weapon in general because it's good in the sense that early on it gives you range, which your fists probably don't have until you can get a better weapon anyway. So that's a massive advantage. And by combining all of those, it is actually possible to make a sub 5 clock rush while still checking Spirit Orb if you can do death skip. It's not completely free. I tried it a couple of times, and so I got a 450, 454, and a 459, and one time I even missed it altogether, even though I had the skip. So there's still a chance that you may miss it, but it is somewhat easy to be able to get that sub 5 clock rush, which would allow you access to the Colosseum early to do that check early if you so want. Now, unlike Nimble, it's not mandatory. Even if you miss it, it's like perfectly fine. You can just keep going. It's not that big of a deal, but it is something that you have to keep in mind. All right. And so how does this setup work? So this, to do the jump, to do the death skip, you need to do 2 jumps. One is an initial jump because if you look, like if you just keep going straight, you're gonna bonk on the staircase. And so you need to do a first jump to clear it, but like even if you do a high jump, that high jump is not enough to clear the whole room. So you have to jump and get into this general area, and then do a second jump to clear the gap on Death's room. And the way you do it is if you're able to keep speed from the previous room. So you're either able to jump over the big boulder at the middle of the Merman room, or even if you failed that, you can start at the top of the boulder and just do a wolf charge and then accumulate speed from there. So if you're going for that, once you kill the third warg, you're gonna be at this column right here, maybe this lighter texture on the wall, but basically right after you kill it, you wanna jump. That's the first part of the jump, and then once you land on the stairs, you wanna like walk on it for like 1, 2, 3 frames. I'm not 100% sure, but you want to walk it for just a tiny little bit, because if you jump too early, you're actually just gonna ledge boost and bonk on the ceiling and lose all your speed. Whereas if you jump too late, you're not gonna jump. You're just gonna go straight without jumping. So you want to land on the stairs, walk for a couple of frames, and then jump again. I'm gonna show it to you in a second. Alternatively, if you fail to do this setup, so say that you forget to jump and then you bonk on the breakable staircase, or you jump too early and you bonk on the ceiling and you're able to react fast enough to catch yourself and prevent from going into Death's Room and activating the cutscene, you can do an alternative setup. So start running to the left and go to the second window, counting from the right to the left. It's not the second window from the entrance to the left side, it's counting from the right. Okay, get to this window right here, do a wolf charge, and similar to the reference with the warg, you're gonna go around this lighter texture, except that since the warg is gone, instead of hitting the warg as a reference, you should use the second lighter texture as the reference for the initial jump. If you look between these two screenshots, you can see that you can already see the breakable staircase here, whereas in this other one, in which you have more speed, you jump a little bit earlier because you can't. And then the second part of the jump, it is pretty much the same. So let me show you how does that work. Where is the thingy? All right, so here I'm gonna show the setup in full. So if you're able to do this, do this. It is great. I should also mention about the setup. The way that I do it, I'm gonna pause real quick. Much like with Death Skip, you need to jump off of this ledge in order to be able to jump and clear the boulder. So the way that I personally do it is that as I'm about to hit the second warg, I start jumping to kind of pad my speed. So you can see here's the second warg, I'm about to hit it, and then I start to jump. That is to slow me down intentionally, because if you just keep on the ground, you're just gonna keep going too fast and it's gonna make your life harder. And then I just keep jumping and it kind of works. 1, 2, 3, and then with the proper time, you can jump over and across the big boulder. So let me show that again. And by the way, this is very swag. If you can nail this off in a race, you're good. Jump, keep running. 1, 2, 3, jump, jump, and then you're gonna get across. If you can do this, that's great. However, what if you cannot? Well, if you cannot, there is an alternative setup. So as I said, do that thing of going back to the window and then start running. I am going to show you here. Don't worry about my controller, it's gonna show up eventually. Also, don't worry about the setup. For some reason, I decided to wait forever before going for it. Maybe a problem with the recording, I suppose. Run. As soon as you clear that, here you go. So notice how... Oops. Notice how I'm jumping around this second texture here. So you see the window, you see the first lighter texture. When you hit the second lighter texture, that's just about when you jump. Alright? Now, here's the deal. You are going to fail this a lot. Personally, I'm getting it once every 5 or 6 tries. So it's not impossible. Granted, I haven't done that much practice, but it's not impossible, but it's not free either. So spend some time practicing. If you fail it, try again. If you fail it again, just move on, and that's what it is. It's a shame that you're not going to keep your gear, but what can you do? At this point, you don't really have the MP to keep trying, and at some point, you have to go. So keep that in mind. Next up, important setups, the Lycanthrope IQ check. Because you have Wolf, you can actually ledge boost and check the talisman. It is really not difficult. All you have to do is to just Wolf charge from the very beginning here. You can even do it without the Wolf charge if you don't have MP, but since I did, I am going to show you with the Wolf charge. And then once you hit the ledge, just jump and turn right, and then you can do that check. It's really not difficult at all. You should also notice that because there's this gap Depending on circumstances, like depending on your position, you can actually clear it without jumping, but I recommend always jumping just to make sure, because especially if you've performed the death skip. If you perform death skip and you fall, you're gonna get locked and have to reset. So don't try this at home. And then you can do that check. It's not that big of a deal, but you know, Eldritch checks, here we go, just in case it's a library card or something. Next up, library bookless jump. You know the book jump that people do on a speedrun to get access to fairy card? You can do this, and it's much easier because you have access to a ton of speed, and you can get that jump without having to rely on your books. It's very easy to perform, and you can perform it both from the librarian, so you go straight away, do the librarian check, and then on your way out, you stop to check fairy card. Or if you fail that, you can just do it from the beginning of the room, and it works just fine. It's really not difficult. I'm gonna show you just in a moment. It is pretty important to note this because that check is not in logic. You can do it for free, but it's not technically in logic. So keep that in mind, as it can be a deal breaker. And whenever you go to the library for the first time, you can always do that check. And that could potentially be huge. So I'm going... Do I have a demonstration page? Yes, I do. So I am going to show you the fairy card. So here's the first setup, and this one is performed from the librarian. You can have a backup otherwise, but if you can do this, this is better. So here you go. Jump over the things, and then once you get to about this first pillar, you can jump a little bit earlier, in fact, and then you just jump and hold left. So here you go. Ton of speed, ton of height, ton of safety. That's the better option for you to do. All right? I'm going to show that again without stopping. Very free setup. Now, if you fail to do the setup, it's fine. You can start from the beginning of this room, and I've started from here on this staircase, but you can start from over here and any other place. I just decided to do it here because I was in that direction, and so I just backdashed all the way to here. And again, you're gonna just wolf charge and jump. The only difference is that instead of lining yourself up on the first pillar, you're gonna line on yourself on the second pillar because you don't have as much speed. And precisely because you don't have as much speed, the leeway is much lower. So only do this if you have to. Here you go. As you can see, way less speed. But still perfectly doable and easy enough to try. Alright, so with that out of the way, the next check, Zero Relic Keep. Now, this is absolutely free to perform. You can perform Zero Relic Keeps with, again, 0 relics. That's the whole point of the name. But once you have Wolf and Power of Wolf, it becomes so much easier because, for one, you don't have to worry about setting up on the bridges. You just go. And second, you don't have to worry about Medusa heads. In fact, you don't even have to do dive kicks if you don't want to. You can just ledge boost your way and not have to worry about the candle, even if you do try it and miss it. So this setup is absolutely free, and you probably don't even need to practice it anyway, but it is important that you know how it is performed. Now, a note about it, even though it is free, you shouldn't necessarily go for it because there are a couple of problems. One, since you're going super fast, you're not going to get the 2 items on the breakable bridge in case you have flight or leap stone. Even if you do get the setup and go all the way to keep, you're still only getting 1 check, which is the leap stone check. So if you have if your forms of progression are elsewhere, you probably don't want to go and do this. Again, if you don't have flight, you're gonna have to come back here one more time at the very least to check Fire of Bat later, once you do get flight. And so, even though it's free to perform, you might not necessarily want to go for it immediately. The only situations where you probably want to do this is when you A, don't have any other option, or B, when you get Leapstone as the first form of progression, because that means that there's a 50-50 whether the relic is going to be at Keep or at Colosseum, and especially if you did Colosseum already, either because you did Death Skip or because you took so long that the statue was open at the 6-minute mark, then you know that your progression is going to be a keep, so you might as well do this to go fast, alright? Still, keeping in mind, I don't have a separate demonstration panel for this. I'm just going to use PowerPoint's built-in slider because it's absolutely free. Just wolf charge, and at the height of the stairs, just jump and hold left. You don't need to do anything else. You're going to clear it. Now, if you want to be fast, you can stop moving to avoid bonking so that you can then clear the next slope without having to transform again. But otherwise, it's absolutely free. Just get a ledge boost. You don't need to wolf charge. Just tap forward twice and you're gonna get it without much of a problem. All right, this setup is as easy as it seems. Next up, this super important, wolf only succubus. It is extremely easy to perform. There's no way you're gonna fail, except if you do, you're gonna have problems because you're not gonna be able to get back up. So I would never save for this in a race, but you know, just in case you might want, like you might want to. So this setup's absolutely free. All you have to do is jump over the ledge and then literally just wolf charge and roll and hold right. That's all you have to do. No fancy movement with jumps, no like untransformed shenanigans, no, just wolf charge to the and hold right, and you're gonna clear it, and it's gonna be fine. You don't need to be at the very edge of the platform. Don't get close to it. You might fall. Just stay somewhere in the middle, wolf charge, and it's gonna work. All right. You might want to practice this once or twice just in case, but it is extremely free. Still, you can use this to break logic and do succubus without flight, and reduce the potential need to come back to this area. It's absolutely great. Next up on the list of important setups, the waterfall jump. So this is actually in logic for safe, believe it or not, and so it might be possible that it is a step of progression or that it maybe isn't. The fact of the matter is you must know how to perform this because it might be required for you to go to caverns without access to flight or access to double jump, because you can in fact do it. Side note, if you get gravity boots is not considered flight, and so the logic doesn't consider it possible for you to access that, but because you have wolf, it effectively acts as flight in this preset, although the logic doesn't count it. So you might not need to do this, but it's also possible that you may need to perform this. So it's important to know. Now, you can't get a single straight shot all the way from the spear, guys, all the way back at the start of caverns, but there is a different setup that you can also perform if you need to. In neither case, getting out is free. So I am going to show that to you right now. So, crossing caverns. You can start all the way from this point, and it's gonna work just fine. Now, if you do this one is a bit tricky because you have to do a lot of jumps because of the holes in the water. So I'm gonna preemptively explain how it works. You wolf dash off of to clear these guys, and then as soon as you fall down, you're gonna hit a frog and a little bit of ground. You want to jump very quickly. Then you want to jump at the end of the next platform, and then at the end of the next platform, and then you can just hold left and keep going all the way until you get to the waterfall and jump. Here's how it goes. Jump. Right here, you want to jump again. You don't want to jump too late, otherwise you're going to be falling. And you don't want to jump too early, otherwise you're not going to clear this hole right here. Keep going. At the end here, jump again so that you hit this platform. At the end, and as soon as you hit this platform, jump again. Clear this, jump again, and now you can just hold left and you're going to cross. Now, this is a little bit dangerous because if you mess up the jump on the waterfall, you can essentially just get wrecked and fall down a hole, which would be very sad. So there's a different so if you're afraid of that happening, I wouldn't try it in a race after I've practiced this, but if you're afraid of it happening, there's an alternative setup, and here's the alternative setup. So you start from here, you just do a wolf charge and then jump, and this is absolutely free. You probably don't need to practice it. Just look at it and you can probably perform. And then you just jump and you clear the gap. Once you do clear the gap, you have to make your way back. Now, do not be tempted to jump onto this bit of ground right here and wolf charge straight away. If you do that, you will fall down the hole. The way you're supposed to get out is that you get to the edge here, and then you wolf charge and keep holding right. And if everything goes okay, you're gonna hit this little ledge, and then you're gonna keep going. If you do it too far to the left, you're gonna hit the water and you're gonna untransform, and the water is gonna start pushing you left. In that situation, do not panic. Just keep holding right, and as long as you keep holding right, you will not fall down. You're gonna get stuck, kinda, so you're gonna have to jump at some point, but at the very least, you're not gonna fall down. So don't panic, just keep holding right. It'll be okay. And here you just keep going once you're out of it to do your shenanigans to get to caverns, alright? So, these are the important setups. Oh, I already had a demonstration panel, what a shame. So, these are the important setups. However, if you want to go above and beyond, you can have other things, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to just go through them real quickly, just talk about it, and then I'm going to show a bunch of videos because it's not worth going into detail because you don't need to practice. All of these setups right here, they're not important on their own. You can make do just fine without them, but if you want to be flashy and just show off your skills with Wolf, here is how you do it. Also, there are more spots that you can use the Wolf to get advantages, but I'm only listing here some that you might want to practice because they're not totally free, alright? First one, Alchemy Lab. In the very room, as soon as you clear the loading zone, you can use the Wolf to get a little bit of extra movement in that zigzag room with the spikes to save a little bit of time. It saves 2 seconds over shield dashing, and naturally it saves even more time if you don't do the death skip and you don't have access to a shield and a weapon to quickly kill those guys. But it comes with a problem that it's pretty easy to bonk and mess up the movement and actually lose time instead of saving. And because you're just going fast, you're always going to miss the first item. You probably shouldn't do this one, but if you want to really try hard and get to the clock rush, you might. This is something that you might want to have in your arsenal. Next up, after Spirit Orb, you can climb those final steps with the Wolf to save 1.5 seconds over shield dashing. You can do that, and I'm going to show that up. But it's probably not worth doing that because, for one, you need to do a high jump while moving, and that's pretty tricky and very easy to mess up. Also, by the way, that high jump, you do a high jump while moving not super fast, but still relatively quickly, and going through a screen transition. That's like prone to mistakes all over the place. So that alone discourages you. And even if you do get the high jump, you still have to navigate the room with the Ouija table and the one that leads into the save room, you know, and Marble Gallery. And that one is pretty tight, and you have to like do a ledge boost while going. You go right, and then you have to do a ledge boost to the left, and then hold right again to clear the platform. It's pretty obnoxious, and it costs a ton of MP because you do, at the very least, 2 wolf charges. I mean, you can do it without those wolf charges, but you probably want to do them to save the time that it saves. So if you're low on MP, it's like never worth it. So in summary, only do this one if you specifically want to get the clock rush, which means that you also did death skip. If you didn't do death skip, don't even bother about it. Colosseum Check. Right after getting into Colosseum, you can use Wolf to very quickly get onto the gate to see what the relic is, and if it's nothing, use the same Wolf that you're already transformed on to get back to the door. Not very difficult, but you need to Like the only reason why it's mentioned here is because it's not free, because there's a hole in the middle that you have to jump over. The problem is that the hole is not on flat ground. Right before the hole, there's a little bit of a ledge, so you have to know the timing to jump. Otherwise, you're gonna bonk and fall down the hole and lose a whole bunch of time. So that's why it's mentioned here. Likewise, if you need to traverse to the Minotaur and Werewolf fight, because the relic is something important, you need to know the setup, because in the room with the Blade Masters, there's a bunch of like little steps that if you just run straight through, you're gonna bonk on them. So you must know when you should jump. It's very easy. You just, as soon as you hit the first Blade Master, you press jump and it's gonna be fine. But I'm gonna show it to you anyway. The Sword Lord Clock Tower Rush, not Clock Tower, not Rush, but like, you know the room which has a bunch of like those big green guys with the sword that become spectral swords later? Yeah, that room has an extremely neat setup for you to get through very quickly with the wolf, and it's not very hard, but it requires a little bit of practice just to get the hang of it, and I'm gonna show it off to you. All right. Last but not least, once you get to the Leapstone check, you can use Wolf to clear those that bunch of holes and pillars, to just do it very quickly. This setup is pretty difficult to perform, requires some practice, more than the previous three. However, even if you fail the setup, because there are so many holes and you have to jump around and you can't shield dash and stuff, even if you fail the difficult parts of the setup, it's still worth going for it, because you still get a little bit of movement with the wolf. Even if you fail, it's fine. Just don't transform and keep going. All right. So let me show you all of the setups. Not gonna go too in depth with them, but here's the deal. So Alchemy Lab 1, wolf charge, and then keep going. Stop pressing left and do not jump. Otherwise, if you don't stop pressing left, you're gonna bonk. And if you jump, you're going to go over the spikes. Once you clear that, high jump onto the platform and start a manual dash with an early bark. If you do a late bark, you're not going to be able to do the second bark to hit the bloody zombie. Then high jump into the platform, jump into the next room, and then do a wolf charge followed by a jump. Did that sound confusing? Check this out. Now, I actually mess up here. You're not supposed to get stuck there on that little part, but if you do it right, you can actually cross all the way here with a single wolf charge. Still, believe it or not, this actually saves time over just doing shield dash movement. It's a little bit tricky, but it's very swag, so you might want to try. Next up, Colosseum. No? Where is the... Oh, here it is. It's out of order. That's why. Spirit Orb Climb. Again, you only do this setup if you specifically did Death Skip and you want to try to go super fast. Like, you've bonked everywhere and you know that you're not going to make the clock rush no matter what, quote unquote. You can't really know that because you didn't open the menu. But you think you don't, and you must save that every inch a second. Do this setup. Don't try this at home, it's not worth it. But if you want to try it, here's how it looks. Jump, wolf charge, and here's the big deal. You have to do a high jump right here. It's pretty tight, but you just want to clear this little thing. Do a manual dash, jump, and from here, even if you didn't perform this setup and you just went shield dashing all the way, you would still jump here, transform, and then do a wolf dash to keep going across the room. So from here is just normal movement. I'm gonna show that off again because it's really sick when you execute it right. Again, not worth it, but if you want to try, give it a shot. Next up, the Colosseum Check. As I said, the reference here is pretty simple. You manually do not wolf charge. If you wolf charge, you're gonna have problems. Just manually dash, and once you're about to hit the second candle, jump and then jump again. It's not that difficult. With this, you've checked the relic. Now here, the reference is these two sets of spears. When you hit around this area, you jump so that you can get onto the platform, and then you jump again. Jump, jump again, and here you go. gonna show that off again. Very quick. Next up, traversing the Minotaur and Werewolf fight. You're gonna start here, and all you have to do is Wolf Charge, and when you hit the first Blade Master, you jump. That's it. That's all you have to do. If you don't have enough MP, you can stop the transformation here. You just, or rather, once you reach the hole. But if you do have enough MP, like I did right here in this run, you can use the Wolf to keep getting a bunch of stuff. Gonna show that again. Wolf Charge, jump. That's it. Stop moving, and then if you want, you can substitute those Wolf dashes for manual dashes. It's still faster anyway. Next up, the Pendulum Room. You start right here, okay? It's not difficult. Wolf Charge, and then jump and stop moving, because if you don't jump, you're gonna bonk here, and if you jump and keep moving, you're gonna bonk there. So jump and stop moving so that you end around this area, and then immediately start a dash to the left. Depending on how well you do, you can just hold left again, and it's gonna buffer a dash. Otherwise, you can just manually start, and it doesn't really matter. Once you get that dash, do not wolf dash, because it's gonna cause problems. As soon as you reach around this area, just jump and keep holding left. You're not gonna clear this gap, but the pendulum's gonna catch you, and so you just jump left and keep going. Depending on how you do it, you can actually start another auto dash here, but you know, doesn't matter. Just do a Wolf Charge, and then you, if you don't care about the items, you can keep going a little bit further, but since it's probably good to check these just in case of a library card, untransform early and then check. Side note here, it is possible to do a Wolf Charge here, and then on top of this, jump and actually clear this whole gap and reach to the left. However, I found that to be extremely inconsistent. Most of the time, I would just bonk on this ledge, or not get enough height, or not get enough speed, and just end up falling all the way down here. And so, instead of doing that inconsistent setup, just do this. It's a tiny bit slower, but at the very least, you guarantee that the pendulum is going to catch you, and then there you're going to be able to move on. So, just do this. It's not worth going for another setup. Last but not least, the Leapstone check, and this one is my favorite because, oh my god, this is so fun. So you notice that I'm starting here. You can actually start a little bit further down if you want, and you notice that I'm not starting from the other room. If you start from the other room, the setup's not gonna work. Just get in here, and then transform around this area or a little bit further down in. Do a Wolf Charge, followed by a quick jump, and then another somewhat quick jump, but not as quick, and then a delayed jump on the second pillar, and then followed by a final jump on the final pillar, and that's gonna get you across to Leapstone. Sounds confusing, but check this out. Jump, jump, delay a little bit, jump, 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 and here you go. It's so fun, guys. Pulling this off is very flashy, and I love it. I'm gonna show it off again just because it's so cool. It's not that difficult, actually. You just need to practice a little bit to get down the timing. The problem is that depending on how you jump, if you don't jump early enough, you're not gonna be able to reach this ledge onto the pillar. And once you do reach this pillar, you have to delay your jump a little bit. Otherwise, you're not gonna clear this one, or you're not gonna reach this ledge. And then from here, you just jump again and keep jumping, and you're gonna get to Leapstone. One more time, guys. This one's really good. Jump, delay, jump, jump, delay, jump, 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 jump. And here you go. So, with that, we're finished with the easier setups. Again, there are lots of places where you can use Wolf. The big corridor, I think, the big hallway, I'm sorry, with the Diphlocephalus and the Stone Roses, that's an obvious one that you can do. And since you are going to do it on that corridor, you can also do it from way earlier and chain your wolf all the way around, but those are not very important setup. These are the ones that I think you should memorize and try and go for because they're fun. Alright guys, so that's gonna be it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a blast making those. It's really fun coming up with those setups. They're probably more around the castle, but I just bothered with the early parts because if you can do these setups, by the time you do all of those checks, it's very likely that you're gonna be getting either flight or mist or leapstone and stuff that are going to change, or maybe even bat perhaps, and those are going to change the way you do things. So just keep those in mind, and then everything else discover on your own. All right, so thanks for watching. See you guys around. Racing Doggo %.